Hello, my name is Jodi L, and welcome to another indie book review. I am finally catching up on my review list. Slowly but surely, I accepted this book to review in what feels like a different era, even though it was this year. But today I am reviewing Stonebearer's Betrayal by Jodi L. Milner. This is an adult fantasy all about a archdemoness that comes back after being trapped by this group of magic wielders called the Stonebearers, and she's pissed and wants to wreak revenge. And our young protagonist is a girl named Katira, who thought the wielders, the stories that she was told growing up, are scary but fake, and then finds out that her parents actually are them, only these are the Stonebearers. And now she finds herself, well, in the not so good place of being used as a pawn in this game that the archdemoness is playing. And I was interested in the premise and I did accept it, but I feel like I need a disclaimer here in that with everything that I'm going to say next, my bias is very heavy here, because when it comes to your standard sword and sorcery, epic, high fantasy, whatever we're calling the genre now, whatever one of the 20 names it has, I usually only really like it when it has some kind of twist on the genre. The standard, I don't want to call it vanilla, but that's what comes to mind, type of high fantasy doesn't usually gel with me. However, if you like that kind of thing and you're willing to reread the same trope over and over again, like me with my space operas, then you'll probably really like this one. But for me, I struggled with it a little bit, almost right from the get-go. There's a couple lines of dialogue explaining the wielders and how they are these basic urban legends to this village, and how Katira has always been nervous about them. So when she finds out that her parents are these wielders, aka Stonebearers, she's terrified. The problem is that it's logically explained, but because it's only explained in a couple lines of dialogue before she finds out, her abject fear of the people that raised her, well, logically explained, doesn't feel warranted. I knew in the back of my head that yeah, it makes sense if she's had, a nightmare about these people, but also okay, these people raised you, why are we freaking out? They've never hurt you before. They've even saved your life. You've watched them save your life. Why? But that was a little bit iffy for me. And also, another struggle I had was when I originally looked through this book, I only looked at the Goodreads synopsis, which is different than the Amazon synopsis. And the synopsis on the Amazon page is a lot better. It's a lot longer and more in-depth of what the story is. So when I read the Goodreads synopsis and I saw a mention of one brave girl who will help her family, I'm paraphrasing, but that's the gist, I was like, awesome, brave heroine. She's a captive for 2/3 of the book. And it was a little bit annoying, not gonna lie. It's I wanted the brave girl. I wanted the brave girl fighting for her family. Can I get that, please? There were people fighting. I particularly liked Master, fantasy names, I'm gonna try, Regulus? He was this old master who was really well renowned. They live for a really long time, so he's been around for centuries. And he ends up getting possessed by the demon. And then even after she leaves him, he's still connected to her via magic. I loved his subplot. Him fighting against this demoness, trying to push her so hard that she'll kill him and break the connection, and because basically he's her anchor to the world, and if she kills him, she disappears from this world. And his willingness to sacrifice himself, actually working to sacrifice himself and trying to help the people she's torturing as much as he can while also being under her influence. I was reading this going, I need to read more demon possession stories. I love this inner angst. I also liked Katira's father, Gerund, who is this 200-year-old general turned blacksmith who is suffering from severe PTSD to the point where he has to try to fight off the flashbacks in these big critical moments because he's still so hurt by them. I loved that. The problem is that while the male characters were these great in-depth people, the female characters in the story didn't get as much. Katira was boring. And I hate to say that, but like, I couldn't really name what does she want to do? What does she like? Like, she wanted to get married to her young love and have a family. That's about the most I could figure out. And does anyone else like inherently distrust when a book begins with a young love? Like, I never trust that they're going to survive ever. I am on edge immediately. But she wanted to get married and she's terrified of her parents and now she's captured. And that's about it. And the only other really main female character is her mother. Later on, there's some more that like kind of have a little bit of something, but basically every female character is secondary, not mentioned a lot, and in a lot of cases, need rescuing. Like in a lot of cases, need rescuing. And so you pit that against our villainess, this archdemoness Roth, who is seductive and bent on revenge and working for all of these goals. And I'm like, kind of like her more than any of the protagonists. I like to refer to this as the Ursula principle. When your female antagonist has more strength, agency, and goals that are beyond anything to do with the man, I like the villain more. It's just a thing. So I was low-key cheering on the demoness, which is never a good sign. But I, in general, felt that this would probably be a really good story for someone who likes standard high fantasy. There's a lot of tropes in it. You have a harvest ball, of course. There's a lot of characters that like do the whole "I'm not leaving you" in battle, but they don't fight. Like if you don't fight as a character and you're like, I'm going to go in battle with this person who's going to feel the need to protect me now that I'm in this battle, don't. Like, I've never read that trope and been like, she cares. I've been like, no, what are you doing? You've never even picked up a sword. Get out of the way. Get behind cover. Like, magic is going around. Get yourself safe so the person fighting doesn't have to worry about you. That's a pet peeve of mine. And I get that it's nitpicky, but that's kind of a thing where it's like, if the character doesn't fight, them insisting on staying in harm's way isn't actually an act of love as much as it is an act of naivete. But that happened several times with dire consequences. There was also it wasn't really a love triangle, which I'm grateful for. I really don't like those. But a secondary love interest that I honestly could take or leave. I couldn't really get into it either way. And that's a big thing with a lot of this book was there was nothing inherently iffy about the premise as a whole. The magic might need to be a little bit more explained. I only vaguely understood what the glyphs were. The world building was also fairly light, but I'm not necessarily the biggest world building person, and it wasn't quite White Room syndrome. There was still enough to get the gist of like the feeling of the environment you were in, so that's fine. But overall, as much as there was something particularly wrong with it that really like knocked me the wrong way, there also was only a few things that really knocked me the right way. It's a solid pH of 7 is what I'm saying. It's a solid 3 stars. It didn't really tilt one way or another for me. The things I didn't like were equally matched with the things I did like, and part of me wonders how much I'm going to remember this like 3 months from now, especially with how much I read. A lot of stories will tend to fall through the cracks. But if you are a high fantasy / swords and sorcery / epic / whatever we're calling it now, you probably will like this one. For me, I'm probably not going to be continuing with the series. It just didn't grip me in the way that I would have preferred. And in the year of our Lord Cthulhu 2020, I have to be really careful about what things I'm picking up and my mood, because I am still sure that things are going to take another downward turn in the fall, and I am trying to mentally prepare myself for that. Now, if you are an indie author and you would like a review like this one, please let me know. I will have my email down in the description below. I will also have my review policy down there, so please give that a read through. A quick note, I am still on a soft close, aka I am more likely to say no than usual, but I am slowly working on getting back on top of things, so here's hoping I can open up fully a little bit sooner. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.